I'm feel very lucky to share the first four letters of my first name.
Actually, the
Three
first
letters.
six, we
Okay,
share the
thank you.
first six letters of
Well,
our name.
first four letters. Well, maybe it's more than that.
Yeah.
That's how we met. It's just that we got each other's emails frequently. But that's the least interesting thing to say about Fred Graver. Emmy Award-winning writer, um, such a diverse and dynamic range of things you've dived into, from traditional writing, but as well taking a really interesting little Twitter. Once upon a time when it was called Twitter, that's when you and I met, and that may be a backstory that's worth diving into. But I think people are here to learn from you. But this is our first Robo Dojo. Some of us have been a part of them in person here in LA, where we create these spaces for someone we might call an expert or someone who's figured something out that wants to create a community moment of sharing. Today, we're kind of starting with really the writing process, which is its own essential, sacred part of the creation process of filmmaking. And my hope for today is to discover how this goes. Fred has so much to teach and share with what he's been building with his own business space, builds off of that incredible career of his. But also, I'm curious how this evolves, that we get also people from the community that are, and then for today, I mean, if you really want to talk about Nana Banana, I can't stop the free speech of the Western world. But if you'd like to share your ideas on how writing works in your processes, would love to find a way that organically flows from where Fred takes us. But let's see how this goes. Fred, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Fred, other Fred. um, it feels like there should be some kind of weird force field rumbling when two Freds get together. Anyway, thank you all for signing up for this and for being here. As Fred said, this is the first of this kind of session, Robo Dojo session. And I have some things that I have been thinking about a lot and that I have made an attempt to figure out. And I think the point of what we're going to do today is that I'll talk about what I have attempted and what I have figured out, or not. And then I really want to hear from you guys. So I'm going to share my screen. Um, Here we go. There we are. Um, and hold on a second. Here we are. Good. Um, yeah. So we're gonna talk about this kind of challenge that Fred, the other Fred, threw out at me, which is, could you talk about the fundamentals of storytelling, which is really what I'm all about, and I'll talk about this in a second. For people who are making shorter pieces, right? And a lot of us who are making things with AI, we're limited by the amount of time, amount of video that can be generated by these tools at any given time. And, the question is, how much does the storytelling fundamentals that we use all the time apply in these short form things? So again, as Fred pointed out, less demo, more discussion, less showing, more sharing. I'm going to end up this, and I think it should go about 20, 25 minutes, and then ask what's working for you or what do you think. Um, and it's good to know that I do come at this from a very different perspective than a lot of you. Um, I went to, I was working at Microsoft with the AI teams, basically helping to translate what AI would do to transform uh, businesses, and also talking to them as kind of a writer in residence of, if you're dealing with natural language processing, how do people speak naturally? Um, and then they laid off 19,000 of us. And 3 days later, I was at AI on the lot and was lucky enough to be invited by Fred and Kenny to give a presentation about setting up virtual writers' rooms using AI. And I think I was the only presentation in 2.5 days that had the word writer in the title. And I saw that there is this vast gap, I think, between AI filmmakers, people who are making this stuff, and writers. A lot of it is on the writer side, like people that I work with all the time. Um, yes, I'll share the slides. Um, uh, People that I work with all the time who are professional writers can't get their hands around or their heads around what you can do with AI. Um, and I do see a lot of filmmaking that happens that doesn't seem to quite grasp the fundamentals of storytelling. And so I come at this from as you know, two different perspectives. Those of you who have sat through some of my stuff before in the machine cinema meetings, I had a meeting one evening about 3 months, 2, 3 months ago. A lot of people came, and I talked about mm, trying to define what it is that writers and AI filmmakers can can do together. What do each of you, each of us need to do together um, if we're going to create things that are actually very new and innovative? So the challenge here, this is kind of a gimmicky way of phrasing it, but I was kind of thinking, you know, writers used to have 30 or 60 or 120 pages to tell their stories. Now we have 30 to 120 seconds to tell those stories. And I wanted to kind of figure out, what does that mean? And excuse me here. There we are. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to start with some of the fundamentals of storytelling. These are the things we must do no matter what you're doing. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the pioneers of silent film and and early film solutions. And literally these are solutions to the challenges that we're looking at today that they confronted 100 years ago. If you think about Edward Muybridge or the Meunier brothers, you know, it was basically people making stuff just to make it, just to show that it could be made. And you see a lot of that going on now when we make films, or AI films. Um, but they also began to solve the problems of characters and fundamental storytelling. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about how do those come together? Is it a collision course? Is there something we can do? And then I have two things that I've tried out, and I want to share with you conversations with Claude and ChatGPT that I've had, where I ask them to help me create scripts for 60 and 90-second short films using all of the principles of those silent films or early films. And we'll talk about what they came up with, what they did, um, and how we got there. And then I'd like to open it up because you're all so much better than I am at actually creating these films and using these AI tools. Uh, and I think I'm kind of good at the scripting part. So that's what we're gonna work on here. So I want to talk a little bit about, you know, people are making a lot of AI films, and the why of those films right now very often is just I'm playing with the technology. That's what I'm doing. And the audience for that is other technologists, right? Um, and so what we need to begin to understand is a little bit more of the essential questions of storytelling. And those questions break down. They're very, very simple. Um, why am I writing this? No, why are you making the film? What is your obsession or burning question? Right. And we if you don't have that, you're not going to tell as good a story. Right? But you need to kind of dive in and kind of go, what am I really trying to solve here? You know, Nora Ephron once said, I don't know what I'm thinking about something until I start writing about it, right? E.L. Doctorow talks about the early process of writing being driving down a dirt road with one headlight, right? And but going for that thing, and AI can't do it, right? But going for that thing that you know is there. Why are you making this? Who are you telling it for? And I often talk to writers about AI is very good at this. And I'm going to be showing you a slide at the very end here where I asked AI to help me find who I'm writing my story for. Who else is out there? Who's my tribe? Who else has these burning questions and obsessions and passions? And it's not fulfilling a marketing memo, but in a way it is. In a way it creates that. But you ask AI, here's my outline, here's my story, here's my summary. Tell me, like, who else out there cares about this? And then what platforms are they on? How do they consume media? Who am I talking to? And how am I going to get to them? And then why do they care? So you begin to define, here's what here's the things I care about. Here's the things they care about. And you connect them very often through characters and narratives and the kinds of things that you create that are stories. You create vessels that create all of that connect all of that. So the question here is, hold on a second, I'm going to stop sharing for 2 seconds. The question is, how did the great kind of silent film people solve this problem? And we're going to look at a couple of, let me make sure I can find all of these things. Here we go. We're going to look at a couple of silent or early sound films. And the first one, and to kind of answer this, is Laurel and Hardy's The Music Box. And you all have probably seen the great sequence that we're going to look at, which is the great staircase sequence where they're trying to move a piano up an enormously large staircase. This movie was made in the middle of the Depression. So that the fact that Mr. Laurel and Mr. Hardy have decided to reorganize and resupervise their financial structure, which totals $3.80, certainly resonates with everybody in the Depression, right? And by the way, since a lot of people watch the kind of digital stuff that we make on their phones in silent mode, I would really like to see a reemergence of these really pretty title cards. I just think they're really great. They look wonderful. We all know what that's like. So here they go. Here's Laurel and Hardy, and I'm just going to zip through some of this. Being the kind of hapless guys, and this is a type that we've seen in The Honeymooners and in every other thing, right? It's the two guys who think that the next scheme is going to get them over. So they have this transfer company. They've been hired to bring a piano. There's a really lovely, this is just a comedy nerd storytelling moment. There's a lovely moment where the piano falls on Oliver, and it doesn't really hurt him. It's a little bit like Roadrunner cartoons. And it's very important during the next 12, 15 minutes that that the piano isn't going to hurt them. It's just a very smart thing that they kind of intuitively do here. So here's, of course, we know how bad this was going to be. That the staircase is enormous. It's really large. They're changing it up. And then it crawled because this woman with a baby carriage shows up and has to move past them. This is a little trait to Stan Laurel that a lot of people forget. He had a really mean streak for the passive guy that we would refer him as. There we go. And you couldn't get away with that nowadays. But there he is. He kicked the woman. Not nice, Stan. She goes to talk to the cops. The cop goes to talk to them. Dan has to go down the stairs. And again, he goes all the way down the staircase. You get what's going on here. He talks to the cop. The cop wants to talk to Ollie. Ollie's been sitting there forever. He moves away somehow. There we go. And it's just one more moment with it. And that's what the whole 30-minute sword is about. I do want to point out something. Um, it's got a terrible ending. This is a premise and a joke that they could not figure out how to end. Um, they finally deliver the piano to an apartment, and the guy inside the apartment saying when he hates piano. None of it makes any sense. The wife tells him, "I want it for your birthday," and he now says he loves the piano. It's just at this point, it's just nonsense. Um, the next film that I wanted to share, and uh, oh, I have to give me 2 seconds here. Is again, we have the character here of the little tramp, and I chose to show it this way because somebody actually cut it into a vertical, which I thought was hilarious. So the little tramp, everybody knows that character, and the clothes. If you don't, the clothes are y- you know used clothes. They're sometimes they're pulled out of a garbage can. He does everything he can just to maintain his dignity. In this particular scene, um, he gets a job at a pawn shop. Somebody brings a clock to the pawn shop. They want to get some money for it, and Charlie has to figure out, is the clock still working? He's totally incompetent. So he first treats it as if he's a doctor. Then he uh, literally drills it open. Guy sits there unperturbed, watching, trying to figure out what's going on here. He takes it apart. This all goes on beautifully timed, and I'm ruining every act here. He takes a jeweler's loop. You get the whole idea. At some point, all the pieces end up here on the ground, and he ends up putting them back. Uh, he takes the guy's hat off and puts all the pieces in the guy's hat, and that's the payoff. So which is kind of great. So these are both kind of very, yeah. They're Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, I could sit and watch all these all day long. Um, so there we are. Go back here. Um, I want to kind of talk a little bit about then what's going on, right? And there's two other people that I almost included in this. Up at the top of the slide is Buster Keaton. The Buster Keaton character, totally always confounded, usually by technology, a railroad train or something else, and always survives. So in the audience, the audience's heart is in their throats because he's got a train coming down at him, or a house might fall on him, and he always survives. W.C. Fields, the arrogant drunk, you would hate him otherwise, but he's always getting his comeuppance. In this particular one, he's in a dirigible and the bottle falls over and he dives in after it. Um, the it's really simple, right? You have characters, you have desire, action, complication. Uh, I know I'm quoting from people all over the early 20th century, but George Kaufman, who wrote wonderful plays and many of the Marx Brothers movies, said, "I take a bunch of people, I put them up a tree, and then I get them down off the tree, all the better for having been there in the first place." Maybe this all sounds wildly overly simplistic to all of you. That said, if computer science has taught us anything, it's that the hard things are easy and the easy things are hard. Uh, Even looking up this quote was difficult. It's either Steven Pinker or Marvin Minsky or something called Moravec's paradox, or maybe it's just me and I'm quoting it. So what do we get here? There's a formula that you could identify. You have, and it's something that again I think we can use in our digital shorts. You have a clear want, you have an obstacle, that obstacle escalates, and the reversal, the revelation reveals something about the nature of the human being in it, or the human or the obstacle, the system that has gotten in their way. And you can mix this up if you want. You could begin with the escalation. You could get hit, pies are flying across the room, somebody's caught inside a machine, whatever you want to do. But eventually you will have to answer one of these, of the first two questions, and you're going to have to reverse it in the way that we're talking about here. So here's what I did. I went and talked with our friends Claude and ChatGPT, and I kind of said, you know, let's see if we take this framework, this structure, and I'm going to give it to you. I I put this in a graph or table. I uploaded it to both of them, and I said, let's see if we could update those one or both of those two uh, stories that we just looked at. And so I'm going to change my screen again and see if I can. Yeah, here we go. This is kind of a rundown of the. Um, let me make sure I have this here. Yeah, here we go. This is kind of a rundown of the conversation I had. And by the way, when I teach people about using AI in writing, I don't want to look at the actual work. I do always want to just look at what are the conversations you had. So the first update I had, I said, I want to update the Charlie Chaplin uh, watch guide, the pawn shop. And my input was, let's get a guy who pretends to understand technology and he gets a job at the Genius Bar. So his whole goal, his want is to just get through the day and not be discovered. He's confronted the obstacle by a phone that won't be fixed by any of the easy fixes, right? You can't just like hit the volume number, volume control and the on off button, right? You can't do any of this. He has to escalate it. His solutions will get more and more and more extreme and will alarm the person, right? But and by the way, this is all I gave to Claude. I'm giving you guys more. And then there's a reversal, right? He's gonna take the phone from the person. He's gonna go into the back room. He will spot a table filled with phone parts, just like he has created through his craziness. And all the geniuses are laughing and high-fiving him. That's right. That's exactly how we do things here. And the last shot, he's back at the counter. Somebody else comes up and, how can I be your genius today? So I gave that to Claude and to ChatGPT. Claude was better. So we're going to look at Claude's work um, along with the framework. So here we go. Claude spits back this script, and I would rewrite every bit of this, I think, in little ways, but boy, it's not bad. Um, so you have the title card, the genius. There's Danny. He's adjusting his shirt. He's smoothing his hair. The customer comes in. It won't turn on. Fix it. He's like, of course, I'm a genius. And by the way, those are like just title cards you could put up there or not. He does the usual thing, presses the power button, holds it longer, turns the phone over, squinting at it. He holds up a finger. Wait, I know exactly what to do. He pulls a cable out from under the table, plugs it in as if this is going to make all the difference. He checks it. He's, hooks it up to a diagnostic machine. I kept thinking it would just be funny. He's plugging it into nothing, whatever. Machines, no device detected. He begins slamming it on the counter. He gets a screwdriver. He pulls out the component. The customer's face is just horrified. Then he goes, oh, wait, and there'd be a title card. The transfluxing circuit infabulator is the problem here. Let me do this and let me give you a ticket. I think it says at one point here. At first I thought, well, I'm not sure that's what they do at the Genius Bar or whatever. Oh, by the way, you're obviously going to have to change the name to like Wizard Bar. But I then thought it would be really fun if he just hand wrote a ticket and gave it to them, said, come back in 2 days. He goes back into the other room and he's, kind of obviously scared what's going to happen. And he finds out that all the other geniuses do that, right? There's broken phone parts everywhere. And there he is back at the genius counter. How can I be your genius today? And then Claude literally broke down. Here's the silent film principles that you have. Here's some steps for text to video. And that was that. I'm going to show you one more quick script and then we're going to start. And then one more thing and we're going to start talking. So the other idea was, and this one didn't work out quite as well. I had this idea for the refrigerator. you have a couple of text bros and a talking refrigerator that they've designed, and they need to get it up a long flight of stairs. Every time they stop to rest, the refrigerator falls and slides down, just like the music box. Add the complication that the refrigerator is a talking one. So it's constantly narrating the whole thing. By the way, I don't know if any of you have turned on the workout buddy in the latest version of Apple Watch. Terribly annoying. Yeah, terribly annoying. You're walking at 20 miles. Yeah. Your pace for a mile is 20 minutes. I've never felt older. But anyway, the refrigerator is narrating things the whole way, keeps falling down. And then Claude, oh, by the way, I'm sharing some of the thinking here. This is of course what you're going to get. This is a brilliant modern take on the music box. It broke down the key elements, the silent film principles you need to do, what you should structure, and then gave me, again, a 90-second script where you have Kyle and Brennan and their sleek, smart refrigerator. It's going up. One of them, I love this. We've got VC funding for this, which was Claude's note. Not a bad line. They go up and the machine, and actually it says title card, but actually you could replace the window in the refrigerator, the screen in the refrigerator with the title card. Excellent form, caloric burn, overexertion detected, beeps, all that. It keeps going up and falling down, going up and falling down, just like you would expect. And they finally get it to the top of the stairs. And then obviously it falls down again. Nice job. And there it goes. What was interesting here is that Claude also then generated text to video shot list. This feels very much like a Gen Jam now, right? You go, please give me the character of Kyle, the character of Brennan, the fridge, the establishing shots, all of that. And this is, and I'll share this with everybody, by the way. I'll print this out. It very much feels like what we do in a Gen Jam, right? You can begin to enter all of these things. I want to show one more little thing that came up here. And it's something that I do when I teach and with writers all the time. And I always ask Claude and ChatGPT and sometimes even Gemini, again, who is the audience for this? Why would they care? What am I doing? And I asked Claude to check this, to look at the genius. And I probably spelled it right that time when I originally here. Look at that. Oh man. Okay. So I thought this was interesting. Claude came back and said, okay, well, your main audience is tech savvy millennials and Gen Z, and they're going to relate to the absurdity of people who pretend to be experts at corporate and very kind of corporate theater. Everybody has imposter syndrome, the gap between branding and reality, and your shared frustration with support experiences. That all makes perfect sense. The second audience, Claude knows me and knows what I work on, and told me that my second audience are professional writers and creatives, people like you at Machine Cinema, right? So I said, oh, great. You can prove out that you can direct an AI video that can create a compelling narrative. You can help them understand visual storytelling. So that's my secondary audience, is actually people that I'm trying to work with. And then the third audience was retail and service industry workers who would relate to this absurdity of customer service theater, like what you do when people come in for service. That kind of wraps this up. And what I have to say, I'm sure you guys have a lot to say now, and I would be I'm dying to know. Again, I constantly feel like I'm straddling this gap, or caught in a machine, like my friend Charlie here, where you have AI filmmakers over here, and you have people like myself, writers and storytellers over here. And, does this seem to be working? Did it seem to be oversimplified? what did you learn from this? But also, what are you currently doing that marries the fundamentals of storytelling to digital shorts? And that's the question we have in front of us. And thank you for listening. This was fun. Um, should I look at some of the speak up? I can kind of do this, but yeah, they.
Hey everybody. Hi. Thanks for the presentation. That was really great. I make AI films and shorts, and I've made a bunch of really popular game cinematics, and I worked on Gollum's face for the Lord of the Rings movies, and I do a lot of jack of all trades stuff. I've also, unlike a lot of people who work in AI and work in as screenwriters, I've also built foundation models from scratch, and I work in an AI company, so I know a lot about AI. And I thought maybe this group might be interested in knowing a couple things that maybe
Yeah.
just to add to this. I use Cursor to write my screenplays with, and I can use Claude and ChatGPT with them, and I can save all my files in a project, and I can talk to the code base and not have to copy and paste things between chats. And that way I can ask Claude and ChatGPT stuff about characters or plot structures or arcs or betrayals, and it will automatically load those into the context. The other thing too is that context is the name of the game. Every chat instance that you start is like a mayfly. It only lives for a certain number of characters or tokens. And then once it builds up, it loses its mind. It starts to hallucinate badly. And at the beginning, it doesn't know who it is. And so what you can do is you can make files in your Cursor project that tell a new chat who to be with all of your context of who you are and what you want it to be, and send it to its own little version of Hogwarts. And then once you do that, you'll have a much better conversation with it. And you can also see how full the context is getting. And before it dies, you can say, hey, write a biography that I can give to your kid so that you can carry on your work. And so you can basically give the phrase, give me a comprehensive summary of your current context so that I can restart the chat. And then if it'll dump out what its context is, and then you can copy and paste that into a new chat and resume if you want. There's also a thing in Claude called /compact. But I just thought like just some technical knowledge there might be helpful to you guys, because as you've probably all figured out, context is king, and being able to set the context properly, just like you can with the audience, where you tell the audience, it was a dark and cold, stormy night. The audience now knows what they're going to expect. It's the same thing with a chat. And so context wielding is the new art form. So
a
little bit of a rant.
I'm fascinated by this because I feel like I'm I feel like I'm 8 months behind. Because I do still kind of run back and forth between the different 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 LLMs. I'll ask a kind of a selfish question. How long would it take an idiot writer like me to figure out how to use Cursor in the way that you're using it?
I don't know, 10 minutes. It's a text editor, just like Notepad.
I don't have that much time.
Scrivener is a lot more complicated.
At the risk of suddenly, and this is the off script moments I was curious about today, if there's something resembling like a few minutes of a screen share of what you're talking about, that's certainly, if you want to even think about it, I think we'd be open to it. If you even want to spend a second preparing for that,
this is exactly that's right, Fred. This is exactly what the Robo Dojo is supposed to be about.
Yeah, I think
we have a guy like me talking for 20 minutes, and then somebody else comes in and goes, no, give me 30 seconds.
Or alternative. Look, we're all. I keep thinking machine cinema is like an explorers club, and like I think we're all kind of at the bottom of the mountain figuring out how to try to get up it. So, Dave, if that's something that you even are interested in sharing, I see a couple other people with their hands up. Maybe I'll give them a chance to chime in. But if you wanted to think about like what you might share in about 5 minutes, that'd be great. Does that make sense to you, Bay?
Yeah, that sounds great. I can do it right now if you guys want.
Let me just, I see a couple other hands going up, and at the risk of
so Bay, you stand by. Yeah,
good.
Great. Let's see, Yoav, you have your hand up.
Hey everyone, nice to meet you. I'm Yoav. I actually run the writing with AI subreddit with Fred. And I have also a unique perspective because I don't do not writing well and not creating a video with AI well. So I have a very unique perspective on that. And very, very interesting about Cursor. I actually use Cursor as well. I was very surprised that there are others who use it. So I'm really happy to hear that. One additional thing that I think can really help people, to be honest, I haven't tested it in Cursor, so I need to take a look if it works there. But when you prompt an AI to give you whatever you want, when you ask it to show you his train of thought or chain of thought, it's something that really helps you to debug it. Because in code, you have the code, you can debug it. And when an AI gives a response, sometimes you don't, it's like a black box and you don't know what exactly is wrong in your thinking and how you prompt it. So if you prompt it, especially Claude, you tell him, show me your train of thought, you can really see why he made this decision. It can really, really help you improve your prompts as you go on.
Yeah, that's what was it really interesting to me when I was doing those two outlines. Or the second one, I asked Claude to tell me what it was thinking about, and it went into all these things about, particularly about kind of like silent film and everything that it was searching for, right? So yeah, great. How about we do one more? I saw Alan raise his hand, or
Yeah, I think Alessandra's hand might have been up first.
but Alessandra, that's right. That's right. Alessandra, you're next.
Migration, sorry.
Alessandra, yeah.
Hi, thank you for your talk and the chat also with everyone. So the question is, on top of the advantage of this tool providing you be much faster in writing, so the quickness, do you see, and maybe also suggesting you good prompts to generate images or video, as a writer, do you see any other advantages in terms, I don't know, improving your imagination, broadening your scheme of thought? What are, in terms of pure writing experience for you, what are the advantages here?
Yeah. I work on this all the time, and in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be launching an online school called the AI Writers Studio, where I go into all of that stuff, right? So it first thing, the different LLMs have different personalities, right? So you're going to create a writer's room, and if you had a writer's room and you asked Quentin Tarantino and Nora Ephron and Christopher Nolan into the room together, right? First thing, God knows what kind of script the three of them together would turn out, but each of them would turn out very different scenes, right? So when you brainstorm with them or talk to them about the work that you're doing, and I tend to really, and just from playing around with this for a year, and I think you have to do your own work up front as much as you can, and then you ask it, analyze this, look at this, give me feedback. Claude is very nuanced, right? Claude is because they have a doctorate of philosophy in their senior leadership team, and you can go, do the characters do this? Are they doing this? And you want to obviously create a project and give it a lot of context. ChatGPT, I'm going to say that as they say in Silicon Valley, the bug is a feature. So ChatGPT is the overeager film student who has read and seen everything and wants to tell you exactly what the screenplay should be like right now. What's great is if you say to ChatGPT, go nuts, reimagine this as a Western, reimagine this as a film noir. I did one time, I was working on a scene and I said, turn this into a pharmaceutical ad with warnings. Right. So, and then you can look at that and it's like, it's a little bit like Brian Eno's oblique strategies. Sometimes you just go hit yourself on the side of the head and see where that goes. I think a lot of people, Alessandra, to your question, a lot of people are narrowly defining the power of AI to help you as a writer. You have the things that you know how to do really well. And there's no way that AI can know what you know because AI doesn't know what it doesn't know. What it does know is a whole bunch of junk that you don't know that has everything to do from expanding how you understand the audience for your work. I think we don't all, it understands the audience for our work better than we do. It understands context and historical references. Like Gemini is just so brilliant at, I'm writing about a scientist in 1940 who's doing this. And, can you give me the context, about, and it's great with that. It's a really good partner and assistant. Um, and what I found interesting about this little silent film exercise is, given a second by second breakdown of a 60, 90-second short and the principles of storytelling in this kind of framework, I could just give it a basic idea and it gave me a good enough first draft. I don't think that works. And I know from experience and other writers' experience, that doesn't work as well for long form. It works great in short form. And then I'll just wrap up by saying, part of the reason things like this Robo Dojo session is valuable is, I think we're all like the blind men and the elephant, just feeling around and going, oh, it's this, it's this, it's this. And then somebody to the left of us, this will be a nice segue. Watch this. Somebody to the left of us says, oh no, you could use cursor for that.
It's
And then there's Faye.
Yeah. Faye, if you want to just text in the chat when you're ready, if you still want to do that. I was with Suki, our friend Suki from OpenAI, last week during Tech Week, and she offered a metaphor in the writer's world, Fred, of just saying that to her, all of this stuff is as if all of us can relate, perhaps the first time we were driving a car. But the difference is that we're driving a car through a jungle that has no roads in it. So I don't know, pick your metaphor. We got a room full of writers. Too. Alan, I think you were next with your patiently raised hands.
Well, I'm a fan of this type of thinking, particularly with AI and a way to kind of integrate the tools, and the chat has been great for some of the actions to you and today. I think that we work great together. But one of the questions that seems to be begged by this whole thing is, how do you put your voice, your own voice, into these type of structures? Like, do you have mechanisms? I'm curious about what other things you have in your course, Fred, that would speak to that. Like, how do you write per character? Because it seems like you've got Laurel Hardy, you've got, Buster Keaton, you've got the greats there, but they're the greats. How do you make a great? Like, is there structures for that? Like, how do you write per character, not just character arc?
Yeah. That's a great point. So I go back to, so there's two things that you're going to use with character, right? And they need to be, you need to constantly revisit what you're doing. So you're going to begin with, obviously, your own observations about people and what I like to call their operating systems. Right? How do they behave? How do they make the decisions that they make over and over and over again? What's going on inside of them? If you go back to kind of like the thing that I do, and I do it kind of more extensively, where you write out your characters and you write out your story, and I am, all of us, I think, in this group, read The Mediator and Doug Shapiro, right? And just, we're very aware of the fact that for most of us, our work is going to be discovered by people who are guided to that work by an algorithm. And so I'm always fascinated with taking the things that I'm writing, putting them into the LLMs and saying, tell me about the audiences for this work. What are the big questions? What are the burning questions that are reflected in what I'm writing right here and that are reflected in their lives in a larger scope? And you bring that back to your character work, right? Because your characters, if you're writing about your own obsessions and burning questions, and you've found people who also share those, your characters will in some ways embody those questions and those themes. And they're going to kind of like, the audience will recognize themselves, in those characters. And go, oh yeah, wait a minute, that's me, or that's us. I get that. I want to see that. and you're not pandering. You're actually, you're speaking to your tribe. You're speaking to the people you care about. And then character drives narrative, right? The way they behave, the situation, the metaphoric situation you've come up with, and how they behave in that, it continues to drive the plot. Plot is, plot is plot, but plot has to emerge from the characters. So the kind of exercise, yes, you're absolutely right. Like, but chaplains, I think the interesting thing to your point about these were the greats, one of the big differences here is anybody in that era, all the way up to the 1950s and 60s, who was successful, had an experience of working for years, if not decades, in front of live audiences, right? So the people who have that experience now are stand-up comics or actors in the theater, but we have to work kind of more quickly, and AI is actually helping us define how an audience will see our characters. Did that answer your question at all?
Yeah, it does. And I think we should move on to Bay, but the question is kind of like, how do you build that with AI? Like, you're talking about building plot or building stories with AI. And I'm asking, like, can you build an agent, create good character like we're talking about here with Cursor? And
I think you can get input into how people will perceive your character and your story, but I don't think AI is going to be very helpful. It may point out how maybe your character isn't going to connect with people, but its vast knowledge is about the audience and who's online and what they're doing.
I think Bay is ready.
Yeah.
But I wonder if Maria had her hand up, and maybe we'll do one more question and go to Bay. Maria, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just had a few thoughts. So I don't know if that's helpful, if you want to go to Bay first.
What do you think? Do you want to
Let's do Bay. Let's do Bay, and we'll come right back to Maria.
All right. Thanks, Fred.
I'm patient. So hey everybody, just a little context to who I am, just so if anybody cares. I'm gonna share my screen. Let's see here. Hold on. Sorry, I'm new to this.
So Bay, if you're using Chrome, that's going to be your best bet, because then tabs are easy ways to share audio when you share a tab. But it's up to you what you're sharing.
Do you see cursor?
We see it. We see your screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
So I'm just gonna go fast so that I don't waste your guys' time. I use Windows, and Windows key H is how you talk to the cursor. So cursor is basically just a text editor. So it has three. This little thing on the side here allows you to make like a new file. So like foo.txt. This is just a text file, and you can type like blah 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 blah. So it's just a text editor, right? So there's nothing complicated here. Each new text file that you have, if you go into the folder, you basically have the folder as like a little sandbox where you can play, and each text file shows up as a tab here. And if you can close them, you don't have to save them, and they're all always here. And then the center area is your text editor area, and on the right is your chat. And right now I have it set to agents to talk to whatever. And I basically say, okay, it's going to be automatically choose which LLM. But if I turn off auto, I can set it to be GPT-5, Claude, Haiku, whatever you want. I set it to be Claude Sonnet because Claude is my favorite. And then basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a quick story here. So I'm going to go and select these guys and delete them because I don't want these files in the project. And this is basically just a little sandbox that allows Claude to, instead of having to store it in the web page, it stores it in a folder. This is just a folder on my disk. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to her for a second. So give me just 1 second. Let's go ahead and set up some files to act as the context for a project that I'm going to do for writing a creative narrative story. I want you to create one file for the characters, one file for the rules of the world, one file for the writing style, and one file for the target audience. Go ahead and create those files now. And so it's going to go and run a set of agents, and now it's going to go and make a set of files. And over on the left, you're going to see in a second, it's going to automatically create a bunch of files for me. Now it's going to draft its own nonsense inside each one of those files. They're going to show up here, and you can see it's making stuff. I can rewrite these manually. These are just things it started, but instead of having to have it be one chat where I'm just going through and trying to do it all in one chat, I'm sitting here telling it, okay, here we go. And so here's my world rules. Here's my writing style. And I can say, yeah, that's great, but let's go ahead and keep all since I'm not worried about it right now. And I'll say the point of view is going to be, let's do first person, and the tense is present, and the voice characteristics is everything rhymes like an old cowboy song, whatever the hell I want, right? And then I say, okay, that's awesome. So now I've got the writing style. I've got some world rules. I'm going to say keep all. So it does it all. So it has all these files. And I say, okay, gender, target audience. I'm just going to say, like in this one here, I can hit Control K and be like, let's rework this to be defined by the, sorry, talk to it, Windows key H. Let's rework this so that the target audience is defined by the fans of particular properties. So we can say, for example, fans of Finding Nemo and Fight Club. And then it goes through and I basically say, okay, that little LLM is going to go and remake that. Fine, here we go. So now I've got fans of these two things. Perfect. So, and then I can go through and be like, my characters here, and whatever they are, I can say like, let's just overhaul this whole thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new chat just to talk to this one file, and I can say at, and then I can say at characters. So now it's going to modify that file, and then I can say, let's rework this character bio to follow Save the Cat character descriptions and work in pieces from horoscopes and Myers-Briggs personality types and anything that you think is useful from, say, like a Robert McKee Save the Story book or any film theory 101 stuff. And then let it go do its thing, and it's going to look at the file, and then it's going to go and look into its context. And the thing that what I like to do is I like to make sure that I talk about things like Myers-Briggs or horoscopes, because you remember it's read every book on horoscopes in every language on earth. It's read every book on psychology and early childhood attachment theory. You don't have to be limited to film theory or existing corpuses of works from regular humans. You build a context like you would as if you were running a writer's room. And so it's going to go through and look at, Save the Cat. It's going to look at Myers-Briggs. It's going to look at horoscopes. And I can also add in other things about animal husbandry and how to train horses and put all that stuff into the rules for the character definitions and character bios. Now, this text file over here on the left, it's just folders. It's text and files. You can make it however you want. And VS Code is definitely, it's just a fork of VS Code. It's just it's literally the same preferences, same everything. They've just added the chat and the agents on the left-hand side. So you can see red is what it's about to delete. Green is what it's going to keep. I was going to say keep all, and now it's a little bit more robust. So now I'm going to make a new chat. And then this new chat, I'm going to say at code, which is at code. Actually, I'll do to the project. Using the files in the project for context, I want you to create a 150-second long short film about a otter who has to save a baby cat from a alligator in a swamp. And I want you to write the output format in fountain syntax for screenplay and follow the film theory 101 fundamentals outlined by Robert McKee. And I want you to structure it with a 4-act structure ending in a climax involving a tractor. And then it'll go through and look at the files, and now it's going to read all the files, read the stuff that we've outlined, and it's reading the world rules, the character rules. It's probably going to make it sound like a rhyming cowboy thing somehow in there. And it's going to try and, as best it can, accommodate what I just did. And so at the far end of it here, you're going to go and see like, okay, I've got the characters rules. I've got the target audience. I said that fine. And I've got my writing style, and then it's making a fountain file. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Fountain. Fountain is an open source screenplay format, so that you don't have to worry about your corrupted FDX files. It's just like a raw text file format, but it knows how to like do normal screenplay formatting. So in a minute here, it's going to go ahead and produce a fountain file that is exactly our little story. And it might be wrong. There might be hallucinations. You can see over here on the bottom right, there's this little dial. This tells you how full the context is. Every time it does something, the context gets more and more full. So when that dial fills up, you're talking to an old senile dude in an old folks home who doesn't recognize his hand anymore. So you gotta make a new one. So, managing the context window is the name of the game, folks. And so here's our file with our fade in of our little story. And so that's fine. Here's our story. If I want to look at this as a proper file, I can say, let's go ahead and give it as a PDF preview. And there's our PDF preview. I'll close this so you can see it. And now we've got The Swamp Rescue, written by Machine Cinema. Exterior swamp day, murky water, cypress trees draped in moss and mud and danger. Rusty tractor sits abandoned on high ground, half consumed by vines. Otto, 30s, lean otter, swims through the shallows carrying a fish wrapped in leaves. A gift. He spots something. Otto, muttering, "What the?" Baby cat. Orange tabby climbs to a cypress root, mewling desperately. The water rises around her tiny paws. Otto calling out, "Hang on, little one." Otto swims closer. Blah, 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 blah. I'll let you read it later. But that's how I use Cursor.
Can you share it back with us after? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. So if you just,
Unless it does say by Machine Cinema, so it's up to you how you want to share it. The open source email.
how do I save a file how do I send you guys a
I
file?
can just reach out to you. I'll ping you.
Okay. Yeah. Bay at neurostudios.ai.
I think you're on. If you did you use the Luma invite?
I did. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
then I'll find you on there. No worries.
Yeah. I'll just zip up the whole archive and you guys can put it in a folder and open it. You basically just open folders in Cursor and it will, I'll stop sharing my screen actually.
I have a
Very
question.
cool. Thank you. This was kind
Yeah.
of what I need for a little bit of sort of spontaneity. Fred Graver,
Yeah.
I'll repin you so you're the big face again.
That was insane. So it reminds me of when I was at AI on the lot. I did this presentation and a guy came up who is a professional TV writer. He literally hid his badge in his jacket. And he told me, well, here's what I do. I line up 3 screens, Perplexity, ChatGPT, and Claude. I turn them all on voice mode. They all have my outlines. They all have my characters. They all have the stuff. And I go, okay, now we're working on this scene. Go write it. And all 3 of them write it. And then he reads it and he, figures it out. And I said to him, well, and he goes, I've sold 4 screenplays that I've written like that. And what I said to him though is, you must have terrific ideas for movies. And he goes, yeah, that's my stock and trade. I just have great ideas. And the more I can offload the actual production of the screenplay, the faster life is for me. This is mind blowing, but what I like about it is it still relies on your choice of first thing, your main idea, but the choices you make, you ran through these really quickly, but each of those choices is so much who you are, right? And what you want to do. So it feels like so much of the writer's voice is still in there.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the thing, right? Is that instead of trying to do it in one chat, in one 0-shot thing, what I do is I artfully build a context very, very deliberately and carefully so that the context is exactly what I want it to be. It's almost like I'm building my own little Hogwarts. And because if you think about AI in chats, they're essentially like idiot birds that come into existence and they have no idea who they are. And they're like, my hand. And then you go, you are a doctor. And he goes, so I am a doctor. And he goes, you are a doctor in Spanish. And it's like, soy un doctoro en español. And then you basically raise them to be what you want. And if you can get them to argue with each other, then you can have like one who's judging the outputs of the other and using different models. And you can get them to sort of like go through your curriculum, so to speak. And you're not just interacting with one agent, you're interacting with a family tree of agents who've been cultivated by your school. That's your voice.
So Juan has a terrific question along that line. How do you link your ChatGPT and Claude account to the text editor you just used?
It comes with it. It's already set up. You pay $20 a month and it's already hooked up to Claude and ChatGPT.
You hook it up, right?
But it comes in by default. And if you want, you can give it your API keys. But what you want to do though, is you want to make sure that right now, ChatGPT and Claude allow you to look through your past chats. So it can search your past chats, but those take up space in the context window. And you got to really take creative control over what's in the context window. Because sometimes when you summon a chat and you get an idiot bird, you're like, okay, this idiot bird, I don't want him to know everything that we ever talked about. And I don't even want him to know everything that's in the project. I just want this idiot bird to just know one thing and one thing only, which is how to design an interior set for a TV show. And then you tell the idiot bird that it's a set designer and it's doing architectural and interior stuff. And it knows everything there is to know about mid-century modern, furniture. Go. And then it does the thing that you need and makes an artifact. And then you let it die, kill it, bye-bye. And then you've got a little leftover piece that you can add to your context. And you're building a castle, like a memory castle of what your story really is. And that is a reflection of you and all of your choices. So that when you go to a new chat and you say, okay, chat, check out what we're doing. And the chat goes, and it sucks it all into its brain and goes, hey, I'm your assistant and I know exactly how to help you out because I've gone to your Hogwarts school of story crafting. And so when you start asking it for ideas, they're going to be ideas that feel like your trusty assistant that you trained because you built a school for him and you creatively took ownership over the context yourself. You didn't let the factory people at Anthropic or at OpenAI do it. You did it, which is cool.
What's fascinating to me about this, and obviously there is a lot of discussion about unions and guilds, particularly since the Writers Guild contract comes up again next year.
Yep.
And the insight that the IATSE people had, remember their strike came a year after the guild, so they had a year of thinking, was so when you talked about set designers, I was thinking about this, was the thought that there is work that a set designer does, there's work that a writer does, right? And that whoever is controlling that context, right? Those birds, as you said, they're a writer.
Yeah, they have to be a
you're
writer.
no longer defining writing by, it's the person who sits down at final draft and crafts this. It's the person who oversees the production of that script, or if it's not that script, by the way, the other question to ask you, Bay, is like, I suspect that what writers need to turn out as a document or as a list of instructions is going to be very, very different working with AI filmmakers than with somebody who has to assemble a crew and go out and shoot something. So, but that person is a writer. The set designer who uses those tools is a set designer and is paid like a set designer. Whether you bring somebody in who's never done it before, then they're union. Right? We pay them like that. It's just, it's
Yeah. I mean,
amazing.
I think the thing is that like if any of us who's ever done production, whether you're in the writer's room or doing show running or directing or in the edit and doing the final edit, and I've been lucky enough to do all those things. Like one of the things that you learn is that like, there's a cascading series of decisions that get made, and they don't start and end in one section. You know what I mean? Like there's been plenty of rewrites that have happened in the editing room or in the camera or on set during improv, right? And so you have to sort of be tracking all of those decisions. And I think that like those decisions are the human intention. They are the context of the show. And I don't think those things are really going away because AI is just a cliche engine that allows you to interact with the echoes of antiquity really, really well. But if you just say, give me the answer, it'll just give you the average. It'll give you the cliche. You have to drive it as a human intent out of cliche and into something original and compelling. And you know what? You're probably the first person to ever ask the question, like, consider this story plot and now consider this Neolithic poem that was written on a cave wall about this and this and how it relates to neuroplasticity and my shoe and this poem that my kid wrote. And it will find the middle ground of all those things. You can rewrite it and turn it into something. And it's hard to say like, what's your prompt? I mean, my prompts are thousands of days long because they're meandering.
Yeah.
They're anthropology. And so I think that like when we start thinking about things like unions and things like the containers that are guiding the way that traditional filmmaking and development has happened, we're sort of moving back, I think, towards a more creative core than we've ever had before, which is that like we can choose what should be automated versus what should be done by us. But our human intention is the thing that matters. It's like leaving a hose out on the ground. Eventually, the garden grows around it, and what seeds you left out turned into the garden, and how you trimmed the bonsai trees shaped it. You're cultivating something, and you're not an absent participant in that. You are a super collaborator with the echoes of antiquity.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to you asking yourself, why am I telling this story?
That's everything.
Like, what am I trying to communicate? And then you have all these tools. Yoav and I have been talking with a guy named Luciano Floridi. And Luciano is the founder of the digital ethics school at Yale. And he writes with AI all the time. And one of the things that came up to your thousands of hours thing was how long, like if you're really doing it right,
Mhm.
it does take you a lot of time. You
does.
know, there's this, so we have some people asking questions, and I want to make sure we get to some of them because we have a little less than 10 minutes left. But Bay, that was stunning. As somebody pointed out, yes, we went from Laurel and Hardy and Charlie Chaplin to cursor writing and fountain in 45 minutes. Juan, you have questions.
I actually, just because Maria did have her hand up.
Oh,
for do
Oh,
you
yeah, you're
mind?
right. Maria, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Bay. That was awesome. And thank you so much, Fred. This has been really interesting. My background is I'm a TV development exec for drama, so 1 hour, so different format, but I've also been in animation and in VR. And so as you were talking, I thought that was usually helpful. And I was writing down all of my thoughts and my experience as an AI creator and watching my own stuff, however good it is, and then watching other people's stuff. And I think something that's really interesting is, our AI shorts, they can look really polished, but sometimes they're a little boring. And I was wondering, what can that be a function of? Now I'm critiquing my own work. I'm not pointing fingers here, but I wonder, can we, and when we're thinking about a 60-second, 90-second story, a challenge for us is how can we communicate that concept within a few shots, like within 5 seconds? I think that that's sort of the essence of comedy in a way is really good at that is a shot and reverse. I think TikTok creators are really great at that. Animation is really good at that. We have a lot to learn from there. I mean, I think ideally all the stories we tell with AI, we could tell them with stick figures if we needed to. And I think that was a kind of an interesting challenge for me that came out of your conversation, Fred. I love that Laurel Hardy piece because as soon as we see the piano and then we see the stairs, we go, oh crap, this is what's going to happen, right? And then also thinking about what are those reversals in the story that they go where you're constantly switching it up on the audience within 20 seconds, within 30 seconds. I think, again, TikTokers are really great at doing that. And it's what makes a great story. I once worked for a script doctor and he said, children are the worst storytellers because they have no sense of conflict and reversal. They'll just tell you the dog went outside and then the dog sniffed and then he barked and then he went here and then he went there. And there's no sense of drama in that. I feel like sometimes in my own work, I'm just stringing shots together that I hope look consistent. But where is the reversal in those shots? I think is really important. And then I appreciate everyone talking about character. And I think something that's been a challenge for me is, AI tends to generate, when it comes to photoreal imagery, very boring looking people that look very good and very symmetrical. And even if you sort of give them skin texture, they can be a little too pretty. And what I love watching Charlie Chaplin's Little Tramp or Buster Keaton's Stone Face is that these guys were real characters. And is there a way, when we're prompting that we can really push characters to look different, to communicate who they are visually? Again, I think animation does that really well. But those are just a few of my thoughts coming out of it. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, no, thank you. And the interesting thing for image generation, and to the base point about, the LLMs will give you the best possible answer they've been trained to give you, right? I find it's really, so you ask for a character, right? And it will give you very recognizable. And then to your point about being comic about it or being, then you can kind of go, okay, now I need them to be sweating on their upper lip and pulling it. Anyway, thank you, Maria. I think Juan, you're next.
Yeah, my question is technical to Bay. Thank you so much, Fred, for putting this up, and then Bay. So, Cursor, you basically pay a $20 monthly fee. Do you need to pay ChatGPT? Because I have ChatGPT subscription, but then how will you combine that either in Cursor or Visual Basic?
I think Cursor comes with connections to all of them. I pay for it. I also pay for ChatGPT and Claude. I know that it has a place inside where you can enter the keys. That's just a question. Ask Cursor or ask ChatGPT. It'll tell you how to set it up. Don't prompt me, man.
Thank
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I was just a quick note on the characters for Maria. I think it was Maria who said it. The context matters. If you talk like an art director and you say, "Hey, give me a character who looks like they're soft rounded forms, written by J.C. Leyendecker," and from the golden age of illustration, but mix it a little bit of modern digital concept art with a hot rim light with harmonious colors, you're going to get a much better image than give me a cool picture. And so like, just like with writing, how you build the context is everything.
Yeah, this was great. It was just great about that. I know, and when Fred first said to me, "Oh, yeah, we're going to try and do these things, and somebody will show something, and then we're hoping people bring new information in." This went far beyond that expectation. And Bay, thank you so much. I think Bay, my guess is you're going to be the next Robo Dojo. But
I mean, it's on inquiring minds. But
Yeah.
I just want to echo as Fred too, and I'll always be Fred 2 to your Fred 1. Now this is what I'd hope for. We're really experimenting with this Robo Dojo format. It's something that in person, people just walk over and share their laptop, and it happens. We're trying to figure out a way how to reach our community that isn't all in one place at one time and taking advantage of this space. But Faye, thank you for helping us manifest that today and I think other people probably have their own contributions to this. So it's hard to not think that writing is such a core part of this process, to think that we can keep innovating with it. So Fred Graver, you'll always be invited to come back and run another dojo session. But
what I love about this,
if anybody else wants to jump in. Yeah.
my worry, I've said so, not my worry, but again, there's a gap. This whole session, just in terms of who was here, the questions that we got, the whole, this really is the machine cinema community kind of really trying to nail writing. And also what I liked about this was just the respect for storytelling and writing and the fundamentals of it that we don't often hear from the group. So this was just perfect. This was just great.
Yeah, thank you so much for organizing it. I love that you place the emphasis on the reveal and the motivations, and I love that we're starting with Laurel and Hardy, and that was great.
Yeah. By the way, Buster Keaton. Go back and watch Buster Keaton. There's just nobody better. The only film Samuel Beckett ever wrote a script for featured Buster Keaton, and to me, that's a marriage made in heaven, is Samuel Beckett and Buster Keaton's own faced class.
I just want to hey guys, Fred, when you showed the piano on it, something that everyone should do if they ever get the chance is to see these silent movies, but with a live pianist and live in the audience, because the thing that maybe we don't understand about that film, because we're watching it recorded, is there was being able to make the sound of that piano smashing down on the piano that was in the room with you was probably amazing in terms of how that worked. So I think there's a little bit of as we all struggle with the value of recorded versus event, it all started with events. And I think we're heading back towards events. And even if you say it's a special programming event, it's like a tentpole event. Media aspires to events. So I think the flexibility of new stuff and live stuff and all these things that are blending, and Bay, I just love the ability to move so fast through something that provides so much structure is absolutely what these things are missing, because it's right now, a lot of folks, they come to a Gen Jam and they're like, okay, I need a story. And then whatever the first thing that comes out of chat is what you spend your next 3 hours making.
Yeah.
Which kind of blocks off a lot of the more textural stuff that I think your technique would bring to us.
Yeah, there's an art form here emerging, and I wanted to be a power user of it. So it's I want to teach everybody how to ride the sandworm, which is why I came and shared the secret sauce. It's come on, if you know how to wield it, you can actually control this thing in a very human way and do some incredibly compelling stuff in a delightful way.
We have we're right at the, Rafal, you have a quick question? You're muted.
Yes, sorry. Quick practical question. If you have a screenplay, let's say it's set in 1980, and you want to update it today very quickly, like when you have like practical things, when you have a finished screenplay, and you do a quick fix, you don't have time to go through it in detail, or you want to change this character, she's 50, but I want to make her 20. Is there a way to do it fast, where you don't have to go with ChatGPT or this and analyze it and spend a whole weekend, fixing it piece by piece by piece?
I have an answer, but Bay, you have an answer. You go first.
Yeah, so you want to make sure that the context window of the LLM that you're using is large enough, because if the context window can't load the entire screenplay, you're screwed. And so what you need to do is use Claude Max, which has a 1,000,000 token window, or Gemini to do it, and then make a context in Cursor to tell it what the rules are of how you want to do your rewrite, and then let it run and come back in a few hours. But you have to make sure that the LLM has a large enough context window, or it's just a waste of time.
Right. And then, well, so yeah, and so what I often do, the context windows, and the other weird, frustrating thing is, as Bay kind of said, even if you set up projects and project knowledge and everything else, you start assessing and you just need to, I actually have something that I copy and paste. This is what we're working on. Don't forget, reference these things. You could go in kind of a couple of scenes by a couple of scenes. Gemini is really, really good at kind of historical context. So you could say, this script is set in the 80s, right? I need to update it to 2025. Can you make suggestions to me for how the characters might do, right? And you might need to ask certain things like, how would they communicate with each other? Obviously, they wouldn't have cell phones, but they'd have cell phones now, things like that. And Gemini is really good at giving you the historical update, the cultural updates. What movie is playing in the movie theater when they enter, and it's 1957, right? And it's good at that. Yeah. I think Fred, you're the master of ceremonies here. We're at time. Thank you. But
Sorry.
there you are.
It's multitasking. I think we're great guys. Honestly, sometimes it humbles me that a lot of us just stay here, because I feel like there's a lot to continue to talk about. I think, again, Fred Graver, let's digest, but I suspect this is an ongoing journey of more sessions where we all learn together. And thank you for leading the conversation today, to help us start, and starting in the ancient times of silent films is the best way to remind us of how sometimes these things have been honed over time. But thank you, everybody. This was an experiment. It's so exciting to see people show up like this and participate. Bay, I hope our Seattle community and John Gaunt up there and what he's been doing. If he has a Gen Jam coming up, and if we'll make sure you're aware of it, and you should feel very, very welcome. You clearly made an awesome impression on us today. We learned so much from you. And I think that's what I want everybody in this community to feel is this is a big today I learned kind of energy, because that is what is going on with this technology. And I learned, and that's why I'm very selfish to throw this together on my end. So thank you so much, everybody. There is a recording. There is a set of notes that will go out. We post this on YouTube afterwards. So nothing is lost if your pencil broke. But thank you, everybody. We'll keep seeing you.
Thank you, everyone. This was wonderful.